Poetic words are mostly archaic words, aiming to produce the elevated effect. Words create mood and context, and for this purpose, old-sounding, old-fashioned, or obsolete words have often been employed. The literary trend of Romanticism and symbolism was rich in fresh poetic terms. Of course, not all English poetry makes use of poeticisms. It is considered that poetical words makes the utterance understandable only to a number of readers. Sometimes such words hinder understanding and force the reader to stop and try to decipher the message as encoded. For example, wings of Because, goldenly whole, a prodigiously keen star, whom she and he, like eaves of perceive. All these combinations are considered ungrammatical inasmuch as they violate the rules of encoding a message. Modern poets, particularly modernist and postmodernist poets, have a strong bias for all kinds of innovation. They are ready to approve of any deviation from the normal. This kind of avant-garde movement in art is characterized by the use of unorthodox and experimental methods. Sometimes such methods lead to extremes. In formal literary stratum of vocabulary, we can single out archaic or obsolete words. We know that words change their meaning and sometimes drop out of the language altogether. New words spring up and replace the old ones. Some words stay in the language a very long time, and while gaining new meanings, they become richer and richer polysemantically. Other words live but a short time and are like bubbles on the surface of water. They disappear, leaving no trace of their existence. This stratum of words stand close to the learned words, particularly to the modes of poetic diction. In spite of the fact that, as a rule, archaisms and learned words belong to the printed page, it is also possible that they both can be used in conversational situations. Archaic words are either partly or fully out of circulation. They can be met in the Bible, prayers, and Psalms. Also, historical novels often abound with archaisms. The authors of historical novels usually use them to create a particular period atmosphere. And of course, we must not forget poetry, which is replete with archaisms. Thou and thy, a and nay are archaic, and of course no one uses them in speech, but we often meet them in poetry. We must take into account one very important fact. Whatever appears to us as archaism at a certain period, it was in fact an example of everyday language. So we can find numerous archaisms in Shakespeare. He does it so skillfully that the reader is scarcely aware that the heroes of the novels speak his language and not their own epoch. For this purpose, he uses language which is not out of date, but at the same time avoids using words and phrases of modern coinage. He sparingly introduces into the texture of his language a few words and expressions more or less obsolescent in character. Mostly, he introduces variety of historical terms. Archaic words and phrases are very seldom, if ever, found in the style of official documents, business letters, legal language, diplomatic documents, etc. Though there are some obsolescent words which may be preserved within the style of official documents, aforesaid, hereby, therewith, the function of these words is terminological in character. It is also possible that archaic words were used for satirical purposes. It is when the situation in which the archaism is used is not appropriate to the context. It also happens that an archaic word may undergo a sudden revival and be re-established in the vocabulary. For instance, the formerly archaic kin, so relatives, one's family, is now current in American usage. The same is true of the word albeit, although. There remains also the problem of differentiating these three terms: archaic, obsolescent, and obsolete. Obsolescent words are called such words which are in the stage of gradually passing out and of general use. The beginning of the aging process when the word becomes rarely used. To this category, first of all, belong morphological forms belonging to the earliest stages in the development of the language. In the English language, there are the pronouns thou and its forms thee, thy, and thine. The corresponding verbal ending est and the verb forms art, wilt, thou makest, thou wilt. To the category of obsolescent words belong many French borrowings, which have been kept in the literary language as a means of preserving the spirit of earlier periods. For example, palette or garniture, etc. Obsolete words are those that have already gone completely out of use, but are still recognized by the English-speaking community. For example, methinks, so it seems to me, nay, no. The third group is called archaic proper. These words are no longer recognizable in modern English. Words that were in use in Old English and which have either dropped out of the language entirely or have changed in their appearance so much that they have become unrecognizable. For example, tross, face, allusal, worthless, lazy fellow. The borderline between archaic and obsolete words is vague and uncertain, and in many cases it is difficult to decide to which of the groups this or that word belongs. There is still another class of words which is erroneously classed as archaic. In fact, they are historical words. Bygone periods in the life of any society are marked by historical events and by institutions, customs, material objects which are no longer in use. For example, yeoman, thane, it's for Georgian Sarteli. Such words are historical terms and they never disappear from the language. The things and phenomena they refer have been forgotten. Historical words have one very important characteristic feature. They have no synonyms, whereas archaic words have been placed by modern synonyms.